really, really good episode for you here today. I'm very, very excited about it because it's another solo episode. And I know I said I was going to try to do them on Mondays, but you know what? Alice and Prince wanted to do it on Monday, so I had to move the solo episode till Friday. We're moving stuff around. We're finding our groove. It's going to be good, and we're just going to rock with it here. But we have so much to happen this week, guys. I've got my whole notebook of notes to go over here with you guys. We pitched Russell Brunson. We hired a content team, interviewed some copywriters, and it's just going to be, we have lots to cover today, guys. So good, so good, so good. And I've got my trusty... On audio, you guys can't see this, but I got my trusty iPad here that is allowing me to draw on my whiteboard. So we may or may not go into that today, but specifically what we're going to talk about today after I kind of go through the intro and everything here is I want to show you guys how to build a loyal audience of raving fans around your message. And it's going to be amazing, 100% organically. So you can go out and get your message out into the world. And I'm really, really excited about it, guys. So if you are tuning in on audio and you like this, shoot me a DM on Instagram. If you're on the live streams, drop some comments, show some love. You guys know the deal here, and we're gonna dive right into things here. In fact, guys, it really was a busy week, and I have my whiteboard right behind where the camera is streaming, so it's like right above you guys. So if I'm looking up there, and I've got like all the points of today that I want to go over. But I got to tell you how today's podcast episode topic came about because it actually has to do with the Russell Brunson pitch. How many of you guys are excited to hear about that? So quick backstory for those of you who are like, Josh, I have no idea what you're talking about. A week and a half ago now, probably like Wednesday, I think of last week. Yeah, I think it was like Tuesday, Wednesday of last week. So about a week and a half ago, I make a post on Facebook and I'm like, hey, I have this really cool idea for my business and I want to invest like $50,000 into my business over the course of the next like couple months. And I'm at a dilemma, right? To me, the economy seems really good. And ironic I say that now because the stock market is down like 1,000 points today. But anyway, the economy seems really good. Interest rates are at an all-time low. People are basically just giving away money, right? And so I was like, I feel like I have three options. Either A, I can just chug along doing what I'm doing, wait till I have $50,000 liquid to be able to invest into this, which that's slow and I'm not all about that life. Number two, I could go and I could go to my audience. I could pre-sell something or I could, sell a products or whatever, but then there's a lot of fulfillment that's involved in that. And then, or three, I could just go get a loan, right? Like with the interest rates or whatever. So I make this post and Mr. Russell Brunson himself comments on the post. And his exact quote was, pitch me the idea and I'll just give you a $50,000 check. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this real? This is amazing. Because it's Russell Brunson. And doesn't even have to do with the $50,000. Just being able to partner up and be involved in something like that would be amazing, right? And so I DM him on Instagram and we're kind of friends. Like we talk back and forth and I was like, are you serious about this? And he's like, of course, dude, but just make it a good story or it is not worth it. And I was like, oh man, that's a big shoes to fill. So I spent the entire last weekend and like Monday and Tuesday of this week coming up with like the story and filming videos and doing videos and doing all this messaging and everything like that. And through the process of all this, part of this storyline that I used here is what I'm going to talk to you guys and teach you today. Now, I'm going to have an hour-long episode here today, so you guys are going to get the extended version of it. Russell, I had about 8 minutes to pitch him this whole idea, so I got about 3 minutes to tell him about what I'm going to teach you guys here today. But it's the same storyline, it's the same framework, and it's the same idea of building an audience of loyal, raving fans around your message so you can go get your message out to the world. So yesterday, we went through, for those of you that are following this story, some of you guys may be following it, some of you may not, but for those of you who are following this story, we sent him a box yesterday and I overnighted it to him. So he is supposed to be getting it today at noon ClickFunnels time. So he's Mountain Standard Time. So in about 2 hours, the box is supposed to arrive. So fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, I can't say anything more about that. I can't tell you what the video entailed. I can't tell you anything that's in the box because he hasn't gotten it yet, and in the off chance that Russell actually is watching this video right now, we don't want to do that. So, no spoiler alerts, but you will have to come back Monday. We'll have another solo episode, and I'll let you know kind of the scoops and the details of what's going down then, and give you guys an update there. Okay, so all that being said, today's episode is around this concept of what I call audience hacking. And for those of you that have no idea what audience hacking is simply put the process of going and building an audience of loyal, raving fans around your message 100% organically, all right? And that's what I teach people how to do. For those of you that don't know my background, like I've grown and managed over 6 million followers on social media between the Instagram platform and the Facebook platform for clients and for myself, and I have a lot of experience in that. And the cool part about it is I've never spent any money on paid ads. In fact, the first time I think I ever really ran a paid ad of any sort was for Think Different Theory Season 2. We started running some ads to that. You may have seen the ads about there. So all of these followers came organically or through strategic shout outs. Every now and then we would like pay for shout outs for like a promotion or whatever. But for the most part, it was all done organically. And I want to show you guys how to do that because the number one question that I get asked, like hands down, well, maybe not, like top 5 for sure, right? I mean, I get a lot of mindset questions now, but without a question, in my group, in the Instagram DM, and I get so many messages in the Instagram DM and on Facebook DM, it's ridiculous. Honestly, guys, by the way, don't try to get a hold of me on Facebook Messenger. Side note for anybody that's trying, if you need to get a hold of me, Instagram DM is the place to do it. Okay. Anyway, but I get this question of like, Josh, how do I grow an audience? How do I build followers, particularly around a Facebook group? Like that's the number one platform or question that I get asked about is like, how do I grow this, this Facebook audience? So how many of you guys want to know how we do that? Well, if you do, I don't know, if you're watching on the live stream, engage. If you're not, then well, on audio, shoot me a DM and say, yes, I totally want to do this. Okay. So anyway, and the reason, guys, the reason this has become more and more of a thing and people know that I'm trying to become the category king of this. I did Steve Larson's audience and I also did Brad Gibbs' audience and Cash Flow Tactics. And like, we just wrapped up that. And I can't share exact numbers of like revenue and things like that. Steve Larson's Facebook group, Steve Larson wasn't even going to start a Facebook group. I forced him to do it. I'm the one that actually created his group. I'm the one that set it up, and then I made him an admin. It's now at 15,000 members, all organically, and he's done, I'm sure, millions of dollars from it, but for sure hundreds of thousands. Brad Gibb, Ryan Lee over at Cashflow, we just wrapped up their launch for their Facebook group like 2 weeks ago, I think. Maybe 3 weeks ago, and they have brand new Facebook group. Well, they had a couple hundred members in it, but it was like dead and not very engaged at all. Has over 2,000 members now, 100% organically. They did like over 10 grand on a $97 product. They did over multiple 6 figures on the high ticket back end product. Once again, like can't give specific details of it all, but it was all organically. And it's following this exact process that I'm going to teach you here today. And the reason I tell you that, and the reason I'm like kind of like working my way into this is I want you guys to understand that keep in mind, I don't have a pitch for you here today. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I want to provide value to you guys because what I'm going to show you here, what I'm going to teach you is the purpose of Think Different Theory. All right. Is the purpose of what I'm doing with my life and what we're building. And I want to share with you the kind of a little bit of the backstory around that. And then we're going to dive into the details of actually how this is done. But this is really important that you understand this because guess what? The algorithm, the people, Zuckerberg, he doesn't care who you are, all right? It doesn't care who you are. So you can be like, oh man, no one's interested in my stuff or I'm not able to do it. I'm the exception. No, you're not. Like anybody can go and do this and it's amazing and that's what makes it so powerful. And so if you don't have an audience, it actually has everything to do with you, which is actually one of the most empowering things ever. Because if it didn't have anything to do with you, if it was somebody else's problem, then guess what? Then you couldn't fix it. But it is your problem. And that's an amazing thing because now that means you can go out and fix it. So just really quick, I just want to tell you why I'm so passionate about this particular, like helping people build audiences and get their messages out to the world. Because like at Think Different Theory, there's actually 2 sides of Think Different Theory. And many of you guys don't know this. This is kind of the first time I'm actually explaining how we have this set up and structured. But it's actually super cool. Okay, so at Think Different Theory, we have the podcast, which is this show, right? The one that you're watching right now. But then we also have the business or the educational side of Think Different Theory, which is our services. So this is our high ticket done for you services and then all of our courses and products. And that is a separate. What we teach over there is a little bit different than the topics and the stuff that I talk about here on the podcast. Like I don't teach religion and politics under Think Different Theory in our education side of things. I teach audience hacking. And audience hacking, like I said, is this process of literally going and there's a formula, the framework. I'm gonna share it with you here on this episode. But the reason that those 2 things are separate, and I want you guys to understand, is what I am doing with the podcast side of Think Different Theory, which is this show here, is I am using audience hacking to go and build this audience. What I'm teaching over in Think Different Theory is audience hacking. However, I don't just teach audience hacking on Think Different Theory. We talk about God and politics and topics that matter and health and entrepreneurship and business and money and finance. I don't teach all those things, right? So the business side, teaches one very specific thing, helping entrepreneurs with the message, get their message out to the world profitably, sustainably, using audience hacking, and then we tie that with ClickFunnels, okay? My brand, Think Different Theory Podcast, is me getting my message of thinking different, my message of going out there and changing the world and talking about topics that matter out to the world. And I'm using audience hacking to do it. So it's actually two separate things. And it's really cool because it proves that you don't just have to create content around whatever it is that you sell. Like I sell audience hacking, and yes, I'm producing content around it now, but that doesn't mean I can't go and I don't just have to be teaching money in order to make this work. So, and that's the main point around this. If you want to teach health and fitness, or you want to teach, how to make money, or you want to teach physical therapy, or you want to teach how to violin better, play the violin better, or how to paint, or whatever it is that you're passionate about, audience hacking works for all of those. And I'm actually going to give you examples of that. All right. And the reason I'm so passionate about this, and I'm going to try not to get emotional here, is, so guys, actually, I got to tell this story a little bit later. Hold on, my computer's freaking out on me here. Actually, I think I should tell this story a little bit later in there, but it has to do with my brother's death, actually. And so let me dive into the backstory here, and we're just going to, we're going to get started here. Okay, so I'm going to back up. I want to dive into audience hacking now, and along the way, I'm going to tell the backstory of how my brother's death changed my life and actually made this come about. And it has everything to do with a 3-part framework for audience hacking. How many of you guys are ready for that? All right, if you're ready for that, well, strap in. Let's rock and roll. Smash that like button, leave a rating or a review if you're on audio. Guys, side note here real quick. It's really annoying that there's not a way to get instant feedback from iTunes. Like they can leave a rating or a review, but there's no way for people to comment on a specific episode. And that's annoying. iTunes really needs to fix that. Maybe I'll do that on my page. I don't know. Anyway, here we go. All right, let's dive into this and get started. So let's back up. Guys, when I was a kid, and this is a true story, okay? When I was a kid, I was the misfit. I don't know if you guys have ever felt this way, but I was kind of like the black sheep of my family, not too crazy. My family loved me, and I'm not bashing my family anyway. They were amazing. But with all my friends, I was the weird one. I was the misfit. I was crazy. I was way too energetic. And the only thing that I wanted to do with my life is I wanted to make money and build a business. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to do what I loved every single day of my life. And I was like, I feel like that's not too big of an ask. But I was told by so many people growing up that I had to go and I had to get a job, and that, someday that I would grow up and I would leave this phase, and someday I would mature and get a real job and yada, yada, and all this stuff, right? And so I really, really felt like I was this misfit. And so when I finally went and graduated high school, and I was homeschooled my whole life, I lived on a farm. When I finally went and graduated high school, I found this thing called the internet and Google, and it's amazing. Now keep in mind, I lived on a farm growing up. I did not have a cell phone until I was 17 years old, I don't think, 16 or 17. I didn't have texting on my phone until I was 18. I didn't have internet until I was 19 or 20, I think, on my phone is when I finally had internet on my phone. We had dial-up internet out in the country. So this whole concept of the internet and Google and all that was this foreign concept to me. I knew what Google was, but we did not have high-speed internet at all, okay? So I went and I found Google, and I was like, oh my gosh, there are literally people online right now that are making money around what they love to do. And I was like, this is amazing. I can do this too. And so I went, and like many of you guys probably did, I bought a course, I ran Facebook ads, I tried to sell different products, I did all these different things, and I was probably 20 years old at the time, 21 years old. I drained my entire savings account of, I think it was $1,500, maybe $1,600 at the time, all the way down to zero. And I made zero sales. I tried to sell everything. I tried to sell network marketing stuff. I tried to sell water filters. I tried to sell Harry Potter books. I tried to sell anything you could possibly think of. I was super depressed. I was super frustrated. I was super annoyed. And then I was like, okay, well, every single person that I am following right now that is killing it, that is crushing it, what do they have? What are they doing that I am not doing that is allowing them to make money? And the answer to that was, I noticed every single one of them had an audience. And I was like, oh my gosh, the reason that all these people can go out there and be so successful is that they have an audience. People know who they are. It's easy to sell to someone when they already know who you are. So what if I became like a celebrity? What if I went and built audiences? Okay. And this is how I got into building audiences. This is literally, this is the thing that led me to go build over 6 million followers or grow and manage over 6 million followers on social media, is this realization right here. Now we're going to talk about paid traffic versus organic traffic and everything here at the end, but understand that no matter what business you're in, no matter what industry that you're in, no matter what you're selling, no matter who you're serving, having an audience will fundamentally allow you to sell more product, become the authority, make it easier to sell, make more money, charge higher prices. All of your problems are solved when you have an audience. All right, it's amazing. So I sat down, I was like, okay, great. They all have an audience. So how do I go build an audience? And so I sat down and I was like, okay, well, what's the first thing that these people have? And so this is the framework. What I'm about to share with you right now is the framework for audience hacking. All right. So I sat down and I started making notes. I started studying. I was like Grant Cardone and Russell Brunson and Gary Vaynerchuk and Tai Lopez and Tom Bilyeu. I've been following all these people for like 4 or 5 years. Right. And so I listed them all out and I was like, what do they all have? Jason Stone was also a big one. I was like, they have an audience and they all have a thing. And so step number 1 is like, you need a thing. And that's when I realized, I was like, they're all about one specific thing. And when I say a thing, I mean your message. But at the time, I didn't realize that I meant a message. I just thought that they were about a thing. So I was like, what's my thing? Well, Russell Brunson is about funnels, and Grant Cardone is about money, and Tai Lopez is about personal branding, and Gary Vaynerchuk is about entrepreneurship. So I was like, what's my thing? And so at the time, I was like, oh, okay, entrepreneurship, that's my thing. Like, that's what I thought all was necessary. I was like, sweet, that's my thing. Great, whoop-de-doo. And so I was like, I'm going to tell everybody that I'm about entrepreneurship. And that eventually evolved and transformed into Instagram, right? So I was like, I'm this Instagram entrepreneur. I make money on Instagram. I hadn't made any money yet, but that was going to just be my thing. And while that is true that every single one of them had a thing, I had this missing piece that I didn't understand yet. And that was that I had to build it into a message. I'm going to get to that here in a second, all right? So that was the first part. So I was like, okay, great. Here's my thing. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm about Instagram. What's the next thing that they have? And I was like, okay, well, they're all producing content. Every single one of them is putting out content. I was like, amazing. Okay, great. This is amazing. I'm going to go. I'm going to produce content. And so I've got my thing and I've got content. Here we go. So I took my phone and I went and I set up my phone and I had a sheet in the background. You can actually go. I have actual proof of this. I have screenshot videos of me doing this. It's so embarrassing. And I would go, and my apartment that I lived in at the time was very, very poorly lit. It was really small. And so I went and I sat at my kitchen table and I put a coffee table over on this side, a coffee table over on this side of me, like behind me. And I took my 2 lamps and I took the lampshades off and I put the 2 lamps on either side just out of the camera so that I'd have light behind it. And then I dropped a sheet behind it. The lighting was terrible. It was so terrible quality. But I went and I did this and I started creating content. And I was just like talking about mindset and focus and money. And I had no idea what I was talking about, guys. Like it was so funny. I would go and I would watch like a Gary Vaynerchuk video or a Grant Cardone video on YouTube. And then I would go and I would talk about what I was learning. Okay. Like this is legitimately how I started. And I posted a video, and the first video got like 4 views, and then like 6 views, and then 3 views, and then 2 views, and then no views, and then 10 views. And I was like, this is so frustrating. Like, I'm not getting anywhere. And for any of you guys that have your thing, and we're going to talk about it here in a second, and are producing content, you might feel like this. You're like, I am producing content, but I don't know what it is that I'm doing, right? Like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not getting any views. I'm not getting engagement. I'm not making sales. What am I doing wrong? And so I went back, and I was like, okay, what am I missing about this? Why is nobody giving me feedback on my content? And that's when I realized that, okay, there's another missing piece in here. Yes, I need my thing. And we're going to talk about that more here in a second. I need my message. I need the thing that I'm about. And yes, I need to produce content. But there's a third piece that falls in between the two of those things that I also didn't understand at the time, that when I went back and learned it, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And that thing is location. All right. And I was like, oh my gosh, location. Now you're like, Josh, what do you mean by location? So there's 2 parts to location. Hold on, let me flip my notes over here, okay? So the 2 parts of location is I need to understand where my audience is at and where it is that I want to send them to. The location where they are and the location that I want them to go to. Because guess what? If I have a message, if I have my thing, which we're going to talk about the elements of each one of these things. I'm just giving you guys the overview framework here, okay? If I have my thing, and even if it was perfect, and I'm creating content around that thing, and it was good content, but I didn't know where my people were, and I didn't tell them where the location I wanted them to go, why would I expect anything else? Why would I expect them to go and do this? Guess what? They have unlimited options now of other people's content and other people's messages. I've got to give them very, very, very clear instructions. And more importantly, I got to know where they're at and what they're consuming now so I can go study them and put content there. And what I noticed was that not only was Grant Cardone publishing stuff on his page, not only was Tai Lopez and Gary Vaynerchuk, not only were they publishing stuff on their page, they were making sure that it was distributed to the location upon which their audience was. And this was a massive, massive light bulb moment for me, because I realized that it was not only my job to find my message and create the content, but it was also my job to make sure that my content got seen. It was not the algorithm's job. It was not my audience's job that I was looking for. It was my job to make sure that it went and got distributed. And so I was like, okay, I need my message. I need my content, and I got to go make sure it was distributed. Now, some people use paid ads. I'm going to show you how to do it all organically. Sound good? All right, so let's dive into this. So once I realized this, I was like, okay, I got to go, and I'm going to start producing content, but first I got to identify where it is that my audience is. And so I literally went out, and I went and got a spreadsheet. This is 100% a true story. I opened up my computer. I had an iMac that my grandpa had bought me for going to college. Whoops, my bad. I dropped out. He was really upset about that. But anyway, so I had this iMac, and on the iMac, I pulled up this spreadsheet, and at the top of it, I wrote Instagram, Facebook groups, Facebook pages, and YouTube channels. All right, like those were the 4 things, like 4 columns. And so I literally went and I started writing down, and I would search, and I would go and like, okay, what are all the top Instagram accounts? And I was really big on Instagram, so that's kind of where it started. And I was like, okay, then where are all the big Facebook groups? So like Rich 20-something community was one of them back in the day, and I don't remember what the other ones were, right? ClickFunnels actually was one too. And then I went for Facebook pages and YouTube channels, and I started writing down all the different ones that may or may not have my audience, okay? Or that I thought would have them there. And I'm like, okay, great. Now I know where my audience is. Now I know who they're following, the type of content that's being put out there. I was like, now I wonder how I go. I don't have any money at this time. I was like, how do I go and how do I get my message out to them? And so I started studying like how I could go and do that. I was like, well, interviews are a way that I could talk to these people. And I wonder if I could get them to share my videos. And I'm like, well, my videos aren't really good enough. And so then I started looking at how the type of videos that these influencers were sharing from other people. So I was like, well, Jason Stone and Millionaire Mentor, they're resharing some content from this page. And this Facebook group is resharing content from this person. And this YouTube account was talking about this type of stuff. And I was like, well, they're all talking about entrepreneurship. They're all talking about Instagram. Like, this is my thing. So they should be able to share my stuff as well. And that's when I realized, like, oh my gosh, my thing was not good enough. It's not just a thing. I actually have to go and have a message. And so I want to actually walk you through the process of message, location, and the type of content that we're going to create and how to distribute that content out to these locations. All right. So that you can make sure that your audience is seen. Sound good with you guys? All right, let's do this. Okay. So I make out this entire sheet. I'm like, okay, this is where it's at. What's my message? And I realized, like, saying I'm an entrepreneur, saying that I'm all about Instagram doesn't really do anything for me. It doesn't differentiate me from anybody else. It doesn't make me special. I don't have frameworks. I don't have anything. I'm like, how do I go and build this? And around this time that I'm going through the process of figuring this out, I'm like probably 1.5 years into this now, is when I picked up this book. And by this guy that changed my life, you may have heard of him. His name is Russell Brunson. He wrote this book called Expert Secrets. It's pretty amazing book, just kind of sort of, just a little bit, okay? You should definitely go and get it. But he talks about building your message. And so I sat down and I was like, okay, what are the elements of this? And guys, I'm going to tell you a little secret here right now, okay? Most of you guys, the reason that you guys do not have an audience, the reason that you guys are having a hard time selling your product is because you don't have a good enough message. And you're not clear enough. And by the way, I shouldn't even say good enough. It's like you're not clear enough on your message. You haven't done a good enough job articulating it yet. All right. And so there's different parts of the message that I want to go through here with you to show you, like, okay, these are the things that you have to define. If you can define these things in your message, now all of a sudden this message becomes a good enough reason and a good enough message for people to want to pay attention to you versus somebody else. And it's going to be the thing that allows you to get into the location. It's going to be the thing that gives you the framework, the blueprint of what all your content is going to be about. Everything stems out of the message that you go and do. I want to give an analogy here about that, and then we're going to dive into what those things are. When I go and I do launches, and I'm going to give you guys the framework here, and then in future episodes, we're going to go and we're actually going to talk about like how this is actually applied from an actual strategic and tactical standpoint. But when I go and I launch a Facebook group or I launch a podcast or whatever, I will go and I will sit down, and I will spend 8 or 9 or 10 hours writing one piece of copy. And I call that copy the master story. All right. And the master story is my message, the message of this Facebook group, the message of the podcast launch. All right. Now think about this. One piece of content I will write for 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 hours. Sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 days to get this absolutely right. But the reason I spend so much time on the message side of things is because once I have my message down, now all the pieces of content that go into that launch, all the pieces of content I create for the hype, for the sale, everything, all is pulled directly from this master story and this message. All right. And all the locations that I'm going to go distribute this to, all the influencers that I'm going to ask, I'm going to pitch them it with this message. All the ads that I'm going to run have the copy from this message. Everything I'm doing comes from this message. And it's the message about the Facebook group or about the podcast launch. And by the way, this message is the message of your brand, of you. So yeah, it might be tweaked a little bit specifically for why we're doing a Facebook group, but it's all based out of the core you. And so when I sat down and I wanted to launch Think Different 30, what did I do? I went and I got really clear on my message, because once I was clear on my message, then I knew how to go and find my location, where I wanted people to go, and the content I was going to create. That make sense? So let's go into this, okay? So a lot of people think that your message has to do with like what you do. Like, yeah, we teach Instagram through this framework, or we teach Facebook ads through this framework, or we teach blank through whatever. That's the what, and that's fine, and that's part of your message, but that is not your message, okay? Your message is compiled of, you got to be able to answer 4 questions, okay? You got to be able to answer why we're here, what are we doing, where are we going, and how are we going to get there, okay? So why, what, where, and how. Now, you guys might have heard of this, but this is the fundamental key of everything, okay? So a lot of people teach Instagram. A lot of people teach whatever it is that you teach. The reason people are going to choose you is because of your why. So when you sit down and go to the message, the first question I answer is, why are we doing what it is that we are doing? What is the story? If I were to say, and so many people get this confused, I do this because, why am I doing this? Because I want to change the world. I want to do this because I want to do blah. No. What is the story that got you to here? What is the story behind the driving factor behind why you're doing what you're doing and where it is that you're going? Like, what is that story? What happened in your life that made you so passionate about doing this thing that if all else fails, you're going to do this anyway because you're so passionate about it? When you have that message and that story down, the what, the where, the how fall in place very, very easily. And people could care less about the what, the where, and the how. Now, they're important. But you could have a great what, a great why, or a great where, and a great how, but in a terrible why, and nobody's going to follow your message. The why is the single most important part of your message. Let me explain and tell you a story as to what I mean by, or to how I realized this and like how I found my why. All right, I'm going to explain what it is that I'm talking about here. This is the story that you're looking for. All right. So back up 4 years ago, I get started in entrepreneurship. And by the way, guys, is this making sense? If this makes sense, and for the listeners on audio, I apologize. I do want to ask this because we are doing some market research and some data research here. So I'm going to ask for feedback and comment back. If you're on the live stream and this makes sense, if you would just comment down below, like hashtag makes sense down below and hit the like button. I want to make sure that this is making sense because this is the first time I've actually ever like teaching this framework or this. And so this is going to get better and better and better and better over time. But like I'm getting this out there and I'm going through and I'm like, okay, I'm testing this story and I want to make sure that you guys are understanding these concepts. Okay. And if you're on audio and you're listening to this and this makes sense, please send me a DM and let me know. Or if it doesn't make sense, like let me know what questions you have in the Instagram comments or in the Instagram DM or on Facebook. If you're watching, like just like comment down below and let me know what questions you have here, okay? So I want to share with you the story of Think Different Theory and the story behind the why of Think Different Theory. And this is really, really powerful, all right? Like this is the why that I'm talking about. Most people's why is, I want to do this because I want to change the world. Or I want to do this because I want to get out of debt. I want to do this because, my why is I want to change people's lives. Okay, that might be true, but that's not a good story. That is not a solid enough why. All right, so let me tell you how this came about. So 4 years ago, I got started into social media. I got started in this whole journey. I told you guys at the beginning, I was this misfit and I went out and I started getting into entrepreneurship and I realized that audience creation was awesome, right? But, and I started having success with it. But I was just doing that because that was the thing that came to me. That was the thing that I thought was going to make me successful. And so I went and I grew all these followers on Instagram and I sold my company to my business partner and I went out and I started building more audiences and I had this agency and I was making like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month, right? And then I crashed. I had this, big, huge, and many of you guys have heard this story where I crashed and not an actual like physical car crash, but like mentally I crashed. I went from making like $50,000 a month to making like $0 a month in about 48 hours. And for like 7 months, I lived off of savings so I could go and I could fix my mindset. And when I fixed my mindset, or at least I thought I had fixed my mindset, I had this much better understanding of money and what was possible. I literally told myself, I don't need an audience anymore. I can literally go out and I can make money and I can build a successful business without having to publish all the time, without changing the world, without building an audience. I understand how money works now, so I can go and I can do this. And so many of you guys actually probably saw the post that I made on Facebook and I said, hey, we're shutting down everything. Social media for entrepreneurs kind of was wrapped up at this point, which was my 30,000 member Facebook group. I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to build a multi-million-dollar company behind the scenes, and I'm going to make tons of money. I'm going to sell for multi-million dollars, and I partnered up with a business partner. Okay. So at this point in my life, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't think I need this audience anymore. I'm really not passionate about changing the world anymore. I just want money, because I had lost my way, and I had, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at this time. I had fixed my mindset, but I still didn't know the direction I was going. Where are we going? That's one of the questions that we have to answer. Where are we going with this, right? But we'll get to that here in a second, okay? And so I'm sitting there and I start this company with my business partner, and we go and we have success. First month we do well. Second month we did like $67,000. And I was like, this is amazing. Everything's going great. I'm going to make all this money. It's going to be awesome. I fixed my mindset. And keep in mind, I had good intentions. I wanted to go help people later on, but I wasn't doing it at the time. And then in March of 2019, we're coming up on a year ago right now, my brother passed away in a helicopter crash. And that fundamentally, radically changed the course of my life. My brother was an entrepreneur. My brother had over 1,000 people RSVP and show up to his funeral. My brother fundamentally changed the lives of tens of thousands of people, like made a massive impact. And he died when he was 29 years old. He left behind a wife, a baby on the way, and a 5-year-old son. Okay, this wrecked my life. But when I looked at my brother's life, I was like, oh my gosh, I can go and I can use this terrible tragedy. I can quit and use this terrible tragedy as an excuse, or I can go and I can find my message out of this. And when I looked at my brother's life, I said, how was he able to go have such an amazing positive impact? I'm telling you, my brother was in politics and political consulting and PR and stuff like that out in Denver. My brother had Democrats show up to his funeral, Republicans show up to his funeral, men, women, gay people, straight people, like everything you could, like every different type of person you could possibly think of showed up at my brother's funeral and got up on stage, like person after person after person after person after person after person after person. And he had changed their life by bringing this message of coming together. That was my brother's message was all about, was coming together. All right. And I was like, oh my gosh, my brother was able to go out there and change all these lives because he had a really, really powerful message, a really, really powerful why. And he was able to get that out to the world because he was an entrepreneur and because he had built a business around that message. And he was able to go out and do that because of entrepreneurship and because he had this message out to the world and because he built an audience around that. And at that moment, that's when I knew, oh my gosh, that's the purpose of Think Different Theory. My purpose is not to go out and make money. My purpose is to go out there and help people get their message to the world by helping them build an audience. Because if you have an audience and you're an entrepreneur, and I want to help entrepreneurs specifically. Why? Because if you're an audience and you're an entrepreneur, you're going to build a business around that audience and it's going to make it sustainable. If you're not an entrepreneur, if you work in a 9-to-5 and you don't understand entrepreneurship skills, that message might be great. You might even have an audience, but it's not sustainable because there's no money behind it. And so I figured out that, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can go out and fundamentally change the world by helping entrepreneurs get their message out to the world through audience hacking, because that's my skill set. And at that point, once that clicked for me and once I realized that, I sold the company and I was like, I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go figure out my messaging. I'm going to go figure out how this is all done. And that's when I went on my world trip. I saw perspective. I gained it and I came back and I said, this is the message. This is the purpose of Think Different Theory. Why I do what I do is because I have a purpose, a mission, a passion to go out there and create sustainable messages for people by building audiences, helping entrepreneurs go and do this. And that's why we do what we do, because that's the only way you can go out and change the world. Now think about how powerful that is. That's the story. That's the story behind the message. That's the why. Yes, of course, I'm going to have to teach audience hacking. Yes, I'm going to have to teach the framework. Yes, I'm going to have to go out there and say what we're doing and how we're going to do this or whatever. But nobody cares about that if they're not sold on the why. Now think about that. How did that story make you feel when I told you that story? Were you like, oh my gosh, that's so powerful? Or were you like, oh man, yeah, whatever, that's kind of cool? No, of course you were like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, right? At least I hope so. And so when people buy into that message and they go, oh my gosh, Josh, yes, let's do this. And by the way, little side note here, that's the story that I pitched Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson wanted a good story. That's the story I pitched him, okay? I'm not going to go into the details of that, once again, in case he's watching, but that's powerful. And so when I realized this, when I was going and building audiences, I was like, oh my gosh, what's the story? Steve Larson, when we worked with him, he had a story. Brad Gibb and Ryan Lee, Cashflow Tactics, they have a story that defined their why. Now I can go in and I can say, this is why we're doing what we're doing. Now I can answer the questions of what we're doing, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. So it's like, here's the why. Where are we going? We are going, And there's got to be a direction. There's a verse in the Bible. I'm a Christian. It says, without a vision, the people perish. All right. Now, whether you're a Christian or not, the verse is true. Okay. If there's no vision, if there's no future-based cause of like, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, like that's the direction that we're headed, then people aren't going to stick around. So you tell the story of why you're doing what you're doing, where you're headed with that story. And now all of a sudden you have a really, really powerful message that people are going to buy into. Make sense? I really, really hope this makes sense. So the question that you guys have to be asking yourself is like, what is my message? What's my story? How do I answer the question of why? How do I answer the question of where it is that we're going? And then I can focus on the framework of what we're doing. What we're doing is we're building audiences. How are we doing it? We're using the audience hacking framework. Okay, so I've gone through and I've answered these 4 questions, and now I have a powerful message. And now I have Russell Brunson's attention. And now I have the attention of Elena Cardone, who's we're working on getting on the podcast. Now we have people reaching out to us constantly, every single day, guys. I get a message of people wanting to interview me. Every single day, people DM me. I'm not kidding you. Okay, so think about that. That wouldn't be there unless I had that why. So what is your why? What is the thing that is going to make you different? And what's the story in your life? And you could be like, Josh, I don't have a crazy story like that. I don't have a story of my brother dying. I don't have something that dramatic. Okay, that's my story though. And I want you to understand like you have a story. Think about in your life, at the lowest point of your life where you've been. Maybe it was when you were let go from a job. And by the way, guys, before my brother died, I had a different story. That was a more powerful story. But guess what? Then my brother died, and that was the most powerful story now. The story changes along the way. So like you look in your life and you go, where am I at right now? What's the craziest thing? Like what got me to where I'm at today? Was it the loss of a loved one? Was it you quitting your job? Was it a terrible relationship that went south? Was it your parents, being divorced or abusive? Like what was the story? What was that tragedy that you went through in your life? Or what was the aha moment that you had that led you to this and put you on this mission? Why are you passionate about what you're doing? Because whether it's painting pictures or selling iPhone cases or selling Facebook ads or graphic design or whatever, there is a story that got you to this point, and it's your story. And when you figure out how to tell that story powerfully, people are going to go and they're going to show up and be attracted to your message. That's what you got to figure out. Make sense? Ready to move on? If you guys are ready to move on, like comment below, let me know. If you guys have any questions on that and you're listening on audio, please feel free to hit me up in the DM. I want your guys' feedback. I want to understand this, okay? So that was the first thing. So you got to answer the question of why. Powerful, powerful story. You need a powerful story behind that. Where are we going? Right? We're going to help entrepreneurs change the world by building their audiences, right? What are we doing and how are we going to get there? What are we doing? We're building audiences. How are we going to get there? By teaching the audience hacking framework, okay? Through podcasting, through Facebook group. So if you're launching a Facebook group, a podcast, or whatever, a product, what's the story? Why does this product or group or whatever exist? Where are we going with the product? What's the end destination that we're ultimately trying to get with this product, Facebook group or podcast? What are we doing with this product, or what does it do? And then how are we going to do it? Okay. So let's move on to point number 2. Point number 2, location. Okay. Now, technically it's when we build this out, it's first you come up with your story, your message, your thing. Then you go and you identify location and things like that, location of where your audience is and the direction of where you want them to go. And then the third thing was content. A lot of people go and they figure out their message and then they go start creating content. You don't have to wait until you're crystal clear on your content crystal clear on your location and crystal clear on your message even before you start creating content. Like I recommend everybody start putting out content right now, because once you start putting out content, it's going to help you change your voice. Find your voice and find your message. It's going to help you so tremendously much. It literally is the process of what I'm doing right now. I'm publishing content around this storyline and being like, okay, I got to figure it out. I'm finding my voice and how I'm going to tell it. And this story is going to evolve and change, and I'm going to tell it better and better and better every time. So start putting out content. But I want to go in order here. Okay. So the second thing is location. Now going back to that spreadsheet, right? Spreadsheet, I've got this iMac, the spreadsheet's up. I've got all my Instagram accounts, my Facebook accounts, my Facebook groups, my Facebook pages, and these YouTube things. I started going, okay, Grant Cardone, Russell Brunson, Gary Vaynerchuk, they're all making their content distributable on these channels. Ty Lopez is running ads. Russell Brunson is running ads. Grant Cardone is either paying people to promote his stuff or creating viral content that will allow people to want to share it. All right. So I went there and I was like, okay, how do I go and let's say I'm trying to figure out how to do this. I normally have a whiteboard, and I could bring up my screen, but I want to keep this audio friendly for right now because it's important. So let me try to paint you a visual picture here for you with words, okay? So imagine there's this really, really big circle, right? And I would just say the earth, but this is the internet, right? So on the internet, there's this massive, massive thing, right? There's 3-4 billion people online, okay? In that massive, massive circle, there's niches. So for me, that niche was entrepreneurship, all right? Well, entrepreneurship's niche for a little small person like me when I first got started was still pretty massive. So I was like, okay, so what's the sub niche? And I kept niching down and niching down and niching down all the way until I found my direct circle of influence around what I was about, okay? So Russell Brunson, Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, Ty Lopez. Yes, they may have my audience, but they are not in my direct circle of influence or one level outside. Okay, they're like, when I first got started, they were like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 levels above me, right? I couldn't reach out to Russell and get a reply from him when I first got started. So I went and I said, okay, if this is the location, and my sub niche, this is the location of all of my people, and it's, let's say there's 10 million people in there, right? The Russell, Grant, Ty, whatever, like their collective circle, let's say there's 10 million people in there, okay? What sub niche of that niche can I go down and have immediate impact in and get in touch with influencers in right now, no matter who I am, all right? So I went and I identified, okay, who are the people that have like 100,000 followers on Instagram? Who are the people that have like a 10,000, 5,000 member Facebook group? Who are the people that are going to be checking their DMs and I don't have to go to a gatekeeper to that I could actually go and get a hold of? And so I made out a list of all those people. So I took this list that I had of like hundreds of Instagram accounts and YouTube accounts and Facebook accounts and all this stuff. And I pulled out like 20 people, 30 people that I was like, I bet you I could get in touch with these type of people. And those people have my specific audience that I could go and I could, if I were to share my message, and I'm really clear on my message now, if I shared my message with them, that their message would resonate, they would really like that and then they'd want to follow me. And so I identified like that is my location, okay? That's the location of where my audience is at. And so I went, and there's two parts to this, but I'm going to tell you the mistake I made, and I want you guys to understand, like, please don't make this mistake, okay? So when I first got started with this, I did not have a Facebook group. I was doing Instagram, and this is back 4 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. I'm building these Instagram accounts, and I thought, how do I go and how do I get my message out to more people? So it's like, well, I've got this list. What if I went and I did interviews on all these people, or I reached out to them, or I asked them to share my content? And so I literally started reaching out to these influencers on Instagram. Now it started with shout out for shout out. Shout out for shout out's way less effective now than it was back in the day, but it's still, a powerful thing. So I'd reach out and I'd be like, hey, will you share my content out on your page? And they're like, yeah, of course, if you share mine. And so we'd do these swaps. And I was like, okay, that's cool, that's powerful, but I was like, I don't really know these people. Instagram wasn't a powerful platform for me at the time. I didn't know how to monetize it. I was like, I feel like my clients are coming from Facebook. So I was like, let me go over to Facebook. And so I would go and I identify all these influencers and I would reach out to them and I'd say like, hey, here's my story. Here's why I want to share it with your audience. I think it's really powerful. I think we could help a lot of people. Do you mind if I come to an interview in your group or interview you an interview in your group? And they're like, yeah. I mean, keep in mind, these people are only like the same level as I am. They've got 2,000 or 3,000 members in their group. A lot of these people, if you've got a really, really good story, they're going to do it. The story is everything. Okay, guys, you could be a complete nobody. If you have a really, really good story, people are going to pay attention to you. Okay. So I'd reach out to them and I would go and they would interview me in their group and they would, we'd go through and do all the stuff. And it was amazing. It was awesome. And then I would leave. And I'd be done with the interview. I was like, that was cool. But I didn't get anything out of it. Like, I didn't get any followers. My follower count didn't go up. I didn't get their emails. I had no way to go contact those people again. And I was like, okay, I know my message is working. I know I've got this good message that I need to get out to the world. But when I'm putting it out there, there's no way for me to measure it. There's no way for me to have impact. I'm not growing. What am I missing? And that's when I realized I don't have a very, very specific location that I'm sending them to. And now you might have heard people say, oh, build your list or, whatever. That's what we're talking about here. When you're doing interviews, when you're producing content, there needs to be one centralized place where all of your people go and that you're putting them through and that you're asking them to go to. Super simple, super, super easy. Now, this could be a Facebook account. This could be a Facebook group. This could be an Instagram account. This could be an email list. But you need to have some place to send it. Now, I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I couldn't afford to hire an email copywriter and have all these expensive email lists and stuff like that. So I got like a MailChimp account was my first thing before I got started on ClickFunnels. And so I was like, okay, how can I go and I can collect these people and actually build an audience and a following? I was like, well, these all people all have groups, so why don't I start a group too? And that was just for me. It could be a Facebook group for you. It could be a podcast. I like Facebook groups. And the reason I like Facebook groups, I'm going to explain here in a second, is because it's like a centralized hub. But I'm going to get to that here in a second, okay? So I was like, oh, I need a place to send them. And it sounds so simple, guys. It kind of sounds like a no duh, but think about it. How many times have you gone and done an interview or you've gone and produced content about something and people had no idea what to do at the end of that? No idea how to follow you, no idea how to get on your email list, no idea how to buy your product, no idea how to reach out to you and ask you for your services. Like, how many times have you produced a piece of content with no call to action or no clear direction at the end of it? Probably a lot of times. And it's funny, I think it was Steve Larson. I was sitting at an event with him one time. Steve, a great friend of mine and someone that's like so smart. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. He's like, guys, most people are not paying you money and are not following you and are not reaching out to you and asking about your services because they don't know how. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? He's like, have you given them a really, really clear path to give you money? I was thought about it. I was like, how many offers, like how many places online right now? This was probably 2 or 3 years ago. Well, probably 2 years ago, right when he first got started. I was like, I literally only have like one place on social media where people can actually give me money. I only have like 1 or 2 places where people can actually follow me. And I'm not pointing people to that. And so I was like, what if I went and I had one very, very specific place and I made this place an offer around it. And I made this super, super sexy and attractive so that people wanted to join my stuff. I was like, oh my gosh. And this was a game-changing moment for me, guys. Okay, so I went and I was like, okay, I'm going to start a Facebook group. Now, quick side note. I don't have time to go into this because I'm running short on time here. The reason I like a Facebook group, this is super important, so pay attention, okay? A Facebook group is the only platform on social media today, right now, where you are not the only one creating the content and that you're benefiting from everyone else and what else is benefiting from everybody else. Let me explain. There's a book, it's called Tribes by, why can't I think of his name? Seth Godin? Yes, Tribes. And in the book, he talks about, he's like, in order for you to create a community, in order for you to create an audience of people that are loyal and raving fans, you, the leader, have to be able to talk to the people have to be able to talk to you, and the people have to be able to talk to each other. It's just like this triangle. You talk to them talk to each other, them all talk to you. And I was like, oh my gosh, a Facebook group is the only platform that allows you to do that. Because a Facebook group is this group where anybody can post, anybody can comment, you're interacting with them, and you're benefiting off of their stuff, they're benefiting off of your stuff, and it's this amazing place. So it's like, okay, a Facebook group is going to be my platform. This is the location that I chose. You do not have to choose this one. I just like it the best. You could choose Instagram, you could choose an email list, you could choose whatever, okay? It doesn't matter where. Podcast even. And it's like, okay, how can I make this super, super sexy and attractive around my message that I'm going to go and get out to the world that people want to actually go and join? Not just like, hey, where do you want to follow Josh at the end of an interview? No, how do I make it super, super sexy and attractive to them? This location, how do I build an amazing location that attracts these type of people? Okay, this is the location part. And so I went and I created an offer around it. Now, it's free to join my Facebook group, but guess what? I tell people, I said, listen, when you join my Facebook group, not only are you going to join my Facebook group, but we're also going to give you this amazing gift. And there's going to be a funnel template in there. There's going to be mindset training in there. There's going to be a social media training in there. There's all these courses. And literally right now, if you go join my Facebook group, it's called The Art of Communication and Ethical Persuasion. Okay? Think different theory. So if you go and you type that in, you join the group. When we hit approve, we get your email address, we make you put it in, we get that email address, and we literally send you off this gift, this bonus package in your email with it's like 6 or 7 different courses and trainings and all this stuff around what it is that I'm doing, around my message. And in there's like a little welcome video, and it's awesome. And so I created this location where not only does it exist, and not only can I tell people to go there, I've created this offer that makes people want to go there. And so now I'm like, okay, I've got my message. It's super, super powerful. And I get people emotionally involved with my message. And now I know where I need to go distribute that message to. And once people in that location see that message, I can now point them to another location that benefits me and grows my audience and my message. 100% organically. So now literally all I'm doing is I'm reaching out to all these people and I'm asking them to share my content, whether that's a share for share or they're interviewing me and I'm interviewing them and we do an interview swap. Some people just want to interview me. I'm big enough now to where lots of people do, right? And I just started doing this and I started going to all these other locations of people that had my audience. I started sharing my message and saying, hey, if you join my Facebook group, we built an audience or a Facebook group of 30,000 members this way, guys. 30,000 members, all organically. It's called Social Media for Entrepreneurs. My new Facebook group is the Art of Communication. I don't have time to go into why that's the case, but like over 30 something thousand members have been grown this way. 15,000 members for Steve Larson, 2,000 members for Brad Gibb, thousands and thousands of members for so many of my students. Because this is what I teach them. I'm like, go distribute your content to this other location, give people a reason to come to you. And that reason has to be tied around your message. Does that make sense? If this makes sense, like comment below and let me know, like say hashtag light bulb moment or hashtag, I don't know, hashtag makes sense. And if you're listening on audio, please go through and send me a DM on Instagram or go to Facebook and comment. Let me know your questions. Let me know if it makes sense or not. Like, I want to hear your feedback. I want to make sure that this makes sense. Because guys, I believe that you have a message. And my message to you is you have a message. Go build an audience around that. All right? And the reason I want to help you build an audience and get your message out to the world is because I saw the impact that this had on my brother. I saw the impact that my brother had to the world by building an audience and was an entrepreneur. And I believe that entrepreneurs are the only people who are going to change the world. But I believe that they can only do that if they have an audience around their message. We got to get the message clear and then we got to figure out the location. All right? All right. So for the sake of time, I do need to move on. And I want to go to point number 3 here, which is the actual content. All right? And this is the thing that so many people get caught up on is they're like, Josh, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to create content. Nobody's watching. Guys, newsflash, nobody watching me at the beginning either. All right? I'll have to post. I posted it many times before, but I'll have to post it later today. A screenshot of my first YouTube videos that I ever did. Okay? 4 views, 6 views. They were awful. They were terrible. Guys, my first videos were so bad. Like so bad. They're cringeworthy. They're terrible. And I posted them before. Like I said, I'll do it again. Okay? So you struggle with it. They're like, what? How do I produce this content? Like, where do I do it? Do I do Facebook Lives or do I Facebook do it? Do I have an Instagram account? The trick to creating content and to start getting good at creating content is just to start creating it, okay? Like, you just got to get started. But what will make your life so significantly easier and make content creation so much easier is when you get clear on your message first. When you've got that really, really, really powerful story that you can always relate back to, that will save you every single time. Because think about this. How many times have you gotten on a live stream? Or how many times have you started to write a piece of content? And you're like, I don't know if this is good. Or in the middle of the live stream, you're freaking out. You're like, I don't know if anybody's watching or listening or whatever. And then you got nothing to drive you. And you're like, this sucks. And you don't post the post. Or you delete the Facebook Live or whatever because you're embarrassed. Or you don't think it went well. Or you're not sure if it's making any difference. Guess what? If you don't have a why behind you, that's how you're going to feel lots of times. It's impossible to avoid those feelings. I, to this day, still sometimes will create a piece of content and be like, that sucked. Nobody's going to listen to it. Oh, that was awful. And I'll delete it. Or I'll want to delete it. But because I have a clear message and because I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, I go, no. Because in the middle of that live stream when I'm like, oh my gosh, this sucks. I don't know if anybody's listening. I go, you know what? Guys, let me pause here for a second. The reason I'm teaching you this today, the reason I'm so passionate about this is because of this. Because of my why. And then you share that why and people are like, oh my gosh. And everybody's back and engaged again. And even if somebody watches it 6 months from now and they're like, I don't know if this is that good. All of a sudden they hear your why. Now they're sold on you and they're sold on that vision. And they're like, oh my gosh, I bet you he or she is going to get better. And they're going to continue to follow you anyway. So you've got this piece of content. Now, quick logistical things. Once again, I don't have time to go into it for the sake of, I want to keep this around an hour. I like to just pick one platform to start with. I produce a lot of content. I produce more content than almost anybody that I know, especially for the size team that I have, okay? You don't have to produce a podcast and a Facebook group and an Instagram account and a YouTube channel and a blog and LinkedIn and TikTok and don't do all that. It's going to overwhelm you. Pick one platform, all right? I like a Facebook group first. Facebook group, like I said, there's so many pluses and benefits to that. I also like podcasts, which is kind of like a Facebook group, except there's no group to it, but the content is usually about the same. But just like pick one platform and then go start creating content around your message, all right? And what I tell people to do, and this is the same advice I'm going to have for you, is go and tell your story, your why story, and go and create, even if it's 50 Facebook Lives. Guys, I want you to remember this. When I started Think Different Theory podcast, before I ever interviewed any single person, I did I think it was 49 or 50 solo episodes by myself before I ever brought anybody else on, so I could find my voice and get into the rhythm of everything. There's a reason I did that. I do what I'm telling you to do here. I practice what I preach, okay? So go do 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pieces of content. And then once you've found your voice, once you have a clear pattern, because the first time that you write this out, it's going to be really, really ugly and be like, that's not actually why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like that doesn't accurately represent me. Fine. Then tell it again and again and again and again and again. Because after 30, 40, 50 times, now you're going to have this line of content. People are going to see the progression. You're going to get super clear on your voice. And now you can go and start distributing that content to other people. If most of you have not created enough content right now to actually have a good message to go out and reach out to other people. So don't start there. Start creating content, getting clear on your message. And then once you get to that point and you're like, okay, now I feel confident in my message. Now I know I can tell it well. Now I can go out there to, all these other audiences, all these other people, and I can pitch them to get on their show or to get on their Facebook Lives or in their groups or share my content with them. And it's actually going to resonate with them because I've actually gotten it right. And now when you go on there and you tell people to come follow you, there's content for them to consume. Think about it. If you were to go right now and you've not produced any pieces of content and you were to have the first piece of content that you ever did went viral, that'd be the worst thing in the world for you. Number one, you have no idea what you did right. And number two, you would have all that traffic, all that exposure, all that everything, and you would collect zero from it because you don't have a location. You don't have content for people to consume. You don't have a clear message. You don't have any of that. You don't want to go viral and get a lot of views right at the beginning. You want to get your message right first. And then once you get your message right, then you can go and do it. And guess what? You're just leveraging other people's audiences. Algorithm doesn't care about who you are or what your message is or anything like that. If you've got a good message, you can leverage other people's audiences to go out there and do that and grow your audience. Does that make sense, guys? Was this helpful? If this was helpful and you're listening on audio, shoot me an Instagram DM. Let me know that you liked it. If you're watching on the live stream, comment hashtag value down below and let me know that you liked it. Drop any questions or comments down below and I'll get to them on the replay of this or if you got questions in the DM, I'll reply to you on there. But like this is really, really powerful stuff because guess what? If you go look at what Russell Brunson's doing and you go look at everything that he's teaching with funnels and you go look at all that, guess what? The first thing that he's going to tell you that you need to know your message. You need to know the story. Okay? This book. Let me grab them here. We got expert secrets. We got traffic secrets. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm so excited about this. But this book right here, .com Secrets. These are my 3 favorite books of all time. They're amazing. Okay? This book teaches you all about how to build a company online. What does he talk about? He talks about the story. He talks about the messaging that you're getting out to your people. This book, guess what? How to Grow an Audience, he talks about the messaging, the story that you're telling people. This book, I haven't read it yet, but I bet you just about anything that has to do with the story. Okay? It's all about the story, it's about the message. So you go get that clear first, and then you can build an audience around it. And then you go to Russell Brunson, and you go, oh, Russell, I've got this audience, how do I make money with it? And he's like, okay, here's how you build a funnel. And then you take that funnel, you put it into your audience, boom, you filled your funnel, and now you solve the problem with traffic. It all makes sense, but you need an audience to be able to go and do this. And your audience is the one that's going to give you feedback. The audience is the one that's going to validate it. You don't know if your message is good until you put it out and get feedback from your audience. You just don't. And that's why, and I want to end with this here, wrap this up here, why organic audiences matter. There's people out there that are like, organic audiences are a waste of time, go right to paid traffic is scalable and all that jazz. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for paid traffic. Paid traffic will scale your company to 8 figures, 9 figures, 10 figures and beyond, okay? But you know what? If you cannot validate your message organically, if you cannot go and build an audience organically, paid traffic is not going to do you any good because paid traffic doesn't make up for lack of messaging. Paid traffic does not make up for not understanding your location. Paid traffic does not make up for not creating content. You know why? Because in order for a paid ad to work, you need to know your messaging, you need to know where you're going to place the ad, and you need content for the ad. Organic just means that you're really, really good at it. So if you go and you validate it organically, guess what you've done? And I wrote down 3 notes here on this. It validates your message, it builds loyalty, and it builds security. Because guess what? If Facebook pulls all Facebook ads, guess what? If you have an organic audience, they're still going to know you. They're still going to follow you. If the economy tanks, stock market just dropped however many thousands of points today, and you run out of money or people stop buying, stop paying for stuff and the ads shoot through the roof or stuff goes wrong, if you've got an audience that knows, likes, and trusts you, you're going to be just fine because they're going to trust you and they're going to look to you. But you become the leader now, and you're going to be able to point them in the direction and still be just fine. It brings security. It brings validation. And it allows you to go out there and really make a positive impact because people aren't just following you because you put a paid ad in front of their face. They are following you because of your message. They're following you because of what you've done to change their life. They're following you because you've done the work to put out good content, to find them, to place the content there, and to tell them where to go so that you have built your audience. All right? All right, guys. That is 1 hour on the dot. I really, really hope this was helpful and beneficial. I am going to hop off here and kind of wrap this up, but we're going to be teaching a lot more of this. If you guys want to see more of this type of content, 2 things. 1, send me a DM on Instagram and let me know. Be like, yes, I want more of this content, or leave a comment below if you're still watching and say, yes, I want more of it. And 2, go join my Facebook group. All right. If you type in Art of Communication and Ethical Persuasion or go to the link in my bio, we'll also link it in the description below this if you're listening on audio. The Art of Communication and Ethical Persuasion, you can join that. There's a really, really cool bonuses that are in there. Like I said, there's a whole gift package with stuff about social media, stuff about sales, stuff about mindset. There's funnel templates in there. There's sales script. There's all sorts of really, really cool bonuses that you get 100% for free just for joining. And I'd love to have you guys a part of that. So if you guys want more of this content, go there. Let me know that you want to see more of it and that you liked it. And we're going to start doing, like I said, one solo episode a week. Probably on Monday. So on Monday, the next episode that we do will also be a solo episode. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we hear back from Russell Brunson and we get the answer back from him, either yes or no. And the feedback that he has there is going to be super, super exciting. And so I'll let you know on that. But that's why I'm so passionate about this, guys. Think Different Theory. The purpose of Think Different Theory is to help people understand why they believe what they believe so that they can go out there and identify their message. And then we give them the tools and resources, audience hacking, to go out and build an audience around that message so they can get that message out to the world. The reason I'm so passionate about this is because I saw the power of that with my brother. When my brother died at 29 years old, think of how many 29-year-olds that you know that have made an impact on the world. There's not a whole lot of them in compared to what my brother did. My brother knew Mike Pence. Paul Ryan was a client of his. I mean, he worked with some of the most influential people in America, like very, very high level people. He was involved in the foster care system and getting foster care people homes and passing bills out there in Denver to like help with these things. His wife was involved. Like all this happened, and he impacted literally tens of thousands of people's lives. There's a literal bill named after him in the foster care system because of the fact that he died. The Senate did a moment of silence for his death when he passed away, okay? I want you to think about that type of impact at 29 years old. Do you know why he was able to do that? Because they had a message. The message of bringing people together. That was my brother's message. And he was able to do that and get that message out to so many people because he was an entrepreneur and he built a business around that message, built an audience around that message of people that he could go and get that out to the world with. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope you found value in it. As always, hustle, hustle. God bless. Do not be afraid to think different. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. If you're on Facebook, leave a rating and a review on our Facebook page. You can just go over to Think Different Theory and leave a rating and a review on there. You can actually do it on Facebook. And then if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, whatever, leave a rating and review, your feedback that helps us grow. And we're trying to get those ratings and reviews up. I love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. And I will see you guys on Monday. Take it easy, fam. Peace.